Are you looking for new books to read? Do you like finding a new special author? Are you tired of the same old books from the same old authors? Well then, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where you can hear from fantastic new authors. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have worked hard to write great new books. Hear about their book and why you should check it out. So sit back and listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
Hello and welcome to episode 129 of Discovered Wordsmiths with Ken MacQueen. We have a good talk today. We did have a few technical issues, some dropouts and things. We tried to pick back up on the conversation and edit that out. But if there's a few little spots that jump a bit, that's the reason why. But I did want to say, you like the background. It's the old background. It's now virtual. I'm still in my new office, but I took a picture and made the background virtual, but I'm going to change it around. So I just wanted to have some fun with it. And I'm hoping to start a new couple segments on the podcast. I'm still working on them, but hopefully I'm going to have each week a bit of a segment from a bookstore owner talking about what's coming out in books and what people are buying and what it's like for this month, this season, whatever. And I hope to have some author talk about what's coming up in the industry. So that's some things I'm still working on, but I just wanted to give you a little heads up that that will be coming up. So anyway, let me quit babbling and I will turn it over and we'll talk to Ken. All right. So finally, after a few mishaps with technology, I want to welcome Ken MacQueen to Discovered Wordsmiths today. Ken, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just had my book launch last night, so I might be a little fuzzy, but I'm doing well.
Good, great. Well, we'll get into the book. We'll talk about that. Before we do, tell us a little bit about yourself, some things you like, where you live, and some things you like to do outside of writing.
Well, live in North Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm looking out over Burrard Inlet right now, watching some freighters go by. And what we like to do here is here and on the coastal part of British Columbia is walk along the Pacific, do some kayaking when I'm not writing, and just enjoying the moderate temperatures of British Columbia after years of living in Ottawa, where it was extreme.
Got it. Yeah, I'm in Ohio, which has very frequently changing weather right
Okay.
below Lake Erie. And
Yes.
today it's very mild and nice, but we're supposed to get rain tonight. So we'll see.
So, do you get the lake effect snow come winter, spring?
Not so much. I'm just a little south of that.
Oh,
It's
lucky you.
close. Yeah, if I go north a little bit, but it's really cool in the winter sometimes when it gets like the last couple years really cold. You go
Hmm.
up to Lake Erie and you see all the frozen waves and the piers are all frozen over, and I mean it's really cool looking.
It is. It looks pretty freaky, actually.
Yes,
Otherworldly. Yes.
yes, yeah. Inspiration for some story.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Ken, why tell us why you wanted to start writing?
Well, actually, writing is what paid for part of this house. I've been
Nice.
a journalist. I was a journalist for many decades before turning to fiction, and I covered any number of things. I worked for two national wire services in Canada, and then for the last 15 years, when I was a working journalist, I worked for Maclean's, which is our equivalent of Time or Newsweek. So that sort of gave me the keys to the kingdom. I could travel all over the world, cover major events and 9 Olympic games and whatnot.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
so it was fun. And then I retired, took early retirement because I thought, well, let's try something a little fresh and different, and not very fresh because I still ended up writing. It's just that now I make stuff up.
So that's admitting you didn't make stuff up before. That's good.
That is
That's
exactly true. And you know what? I gotta say that whole fake news thing really gets up my nose. I
really
I had potentially millions of readers, as a writer for a national national organizations, and plus, trust me, you'd get called out if you were making stuff up. So I checked, double checked, verified, and anyone who attempted to accuse me of fake news usually got a bit of a reprimand for me, because everything I did was recorded and confirmed and tough.
Which people, I mean, off on a tangent here, but I think people don't want to listen and understand that purposefully. They want to make their claims and their beliefs, even though it's completely refuted and not true. I think that's a definite problem we have with news.
Well, it is definitely. It's just it's very inconvenient when they see facts and reality that they don't like. So it's a very easy way to dismiss something, but
Right.
it's a cheap way of doing it, not very effective in my view.
Right. So I've talked to some other people that started in journalism and news articles and things and moved into writing fiction. Even though they're way different, do you feel you had a good basis of learning to write and how to write, etc., from that to move into your fiction, even though they're vastly different ways of writing?
Well, that's actually, Stephen, that's quite a profound insight on your part, because I thought I knew a lot about writing, and I did. Obviously, it paid me very well and got me access to all manner of people. But then now on my bookshelf, I have a whole book, a series of books on learning to write novels and fiction. And I did realize it's quite an education, actually, to go from writing. Well, my longest magazine piece was probably about 19,000 words or so, quite long. But my book is 81,000 words, and there's a whole a series of arcs. But I would say I had to do a lot of research to learn how to make stuff up, which is kind of weird, but it's very true.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that. I can see how being a journalist helps you more than to move into fiction than to start as a fiction writer and moving into journalism. I think it's easier
That's
going, the one way.
Yes. I still root my stories in a lot of fact. It gives me confidence, and when you have confidence, it gives you the voice that you need when you're writing. I mean, that whole concept of voice is a very difficult thing to define, but it's essential. You have to have this confidence.
Right. So let's talk a bit about that book.
Mhm.
It's called Hero Haters. Tell us a little bit about it and why you wanted to write this particular book.
Well, I've been fascinated by heroes for a long time. I mean, we create them in the news business often, but the ones that I was interested in for this were everyday heroes, people who were thrown into a circumstance. It might be a burning building, it might be somebody flailing in the ocean, it could be a car crash. Any case where a regular person puts themselves at risk to rescue a stranger. And I thought, what makes those heroes? What do they do? And I've actually researched that quite a bit and talked to uh, people about it when I was a reporter, but also just doing academic studies and so forth. And people have been asked to explain why they did what they did. Like, why would you risk your butt to rescue someone? And most honestly, they say, I don't know. I just did it. And so that's just a glorious act of selflessness. And those were the sorts of heroes I wanted to explore in this book. But as admirable as that is, as a thriller writer, I wanted to turn the concept on its head and say, so what would happen if people didn't love a hero? In fact, what would happen if they were trying to kill off a hero? So that's where the germ of my book was. As an ex-reporter myself, I made my protagonist a reporter, just because we're all heroes in our own imagination. So, so his job was to vet heroes for something called the Sedgwick uh, Medallion. It was a creation of mine, and he
Fascinating.
was a a robber baron back in the turn of the last century, and he funded this legacy that still lives on today and awards these very respected medallions and financial aid for heroes. So I thought, well, all right, so my guy will vet these as a reporter, former reporter, because he has the ability to do those research. But then what would happen if his heroes started disappearing? And all of a sudden, the heroes that he confirmed and respected are vanishing, and he becomes a suspect. So he has to not only try to save these good people, but he also has to clear his name. And that's basically the genesis of the book.
Nice. Now, is this a standalone or part of a series?
Well, in my optimistic frame of mind, it is. I'm 6 chapters into the next book with my same protagonist. Uh, so we'll see. His name is Jake Ockham, and he's based at a small weekly newspaper now in Aberdeen, Washington. And yes, I would like to see him as a hero. I think he has the legs to carry on for a little while, but we'll see.
Nice. So it sounds like when you started, you just planned on the one book, but had thoughts for more stories, more series. Is that accurate?
Yes. Well, I'd always constructed it with a few unanswered questions and backstory that I would fill in later. Should you know, Lord willing, there'd be another publishing contract, but you never know. Uh, but I thought it had legs, but I'm not much of a planner, so I started this book, Hero Haters, without really knowing how it was going to end, and then it evolved slowly as I went along.
Okay. I just asked because that's kind of what started with me. My fantasy series, I had an idea for a story that turned into now I've got an idea for 7 stories. So
Okay.
it seems like that's how it goes.
Well,
Now,
your brain works a little better than mine. I've got an idea for the next one, but I never look beyond that.
well, I don't know about better, maybe differently, but
Okay.
but please tell me. You said his name was Jason or Jake Ockham.
Yes.
Please tell me you have a scene in there where he shaves with Jake Ockham's razor. I
Well,
just sorry.
yes. Actually, there is a scene where he does explain that name of his, which is his family name, spelled a little differently than the OCCAM, but yes. So actually, the Occam's razor does play a part in this
Okay,
story.
great. Sorry, I like corny dad joke type puns and stuff. So, um, now you also said you made him a journalist because you know that, and that's interesting because how many Stephen King stories is the protagonist a writer? You know, he's got
Very
writers
true.
in every other story he does just about.
Yeah.
So I think, and it's a good that type of protagonist. I think could lead to a series and adventures. You know, because things can happen. And he's pursuing a different story or whatever.
Exactly, and he's still working part time for this Sedgwick fund. So although he's moved from Pittsburgh to the West Coast to work for his family newspaper, he still vets some heroes for the Sedgwick Medal. So he's got that going on the side too. So that gives him not only the reporting side but the heroic side that I can play with, which gives
Nice.
me a lot of freedom.
Yeah. And you mentioned a publishing contract, but I take it this is self-published right now, right?
No, no, my publisher is Wild Rose Press of New
Okay.
York State. Yeah, but
Okay.
it's
Okay.
a 1 book contract, and I hope if I sweet talk them along, they'll they'll renew it with a second book. So we'll just have to
Nice.
see.
So has the first book been doing well? What's the feedback from people?
Well, I've got some great reviews already on Goodreads, but it only actually hit the uh, a release date yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. So we're
that's why,
early.
as I said, I was a bit fuzzy this morning.
Right. Yes, you
Refreshments
did.
were
I
served
apologize.
last night at my launch party.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Okay. So uh taking your book, if you had a choice, would you rather see this turned into a movie or a TV show?
Whoa. You know what? I would have to go with a TV series because one of the my favorite authors. I have a couple of them that are former reporters, like Michael Connolly and his Harry Bosch series, and John Sanford, of course, has written some wonderful books. He's got some great characters, Virgil Flowers and so forth. And they've both talked about how wonderful an apprenticeship journalism is, and I have to agree with him on that. You run into so many characters as a reporter. You see the best of people's lives and the worst of people's lives, and you can draw on a lot of that as you move forward in fiction.
Nice. And would you, when you think of TV series, do you think of old school back in the day, as you know, starts a season in September and goes till spring, or the new TV type series where it's a limited run at just about any time of the year?
I kind of like that streaming idea very much. It works for me because I've certainly enjoyed Harry Bosch. If you've seen the Bosch series on Prime, I guess that is. And yeah, it's a fabulous way of doing it, and you can get an arc, a very complex arc that you can't get in a movie when it's so terribly
Right.
compressed. But I think I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself when it comes to talking about that.
Well, but it is good to think that way too, because like you said, a TV series has different requirements for the story than a movie.
Hmm.
And if you write your stories so they fit well with a TV series, you know, like Indiana Jones, the Raiders, it was written kind of like the old serials where it
It
goes to
was, yes.
a highlight and stop, you know, that type of feel. So you know, if your stories are already like that, it could make it easier to make it a TV show. And there's
That's
a
true.
lot of more choices out there.
I remember when I saw Indiana Jones, the first one, in the movie theater, and it was just love at first sight. And it really did bring me back to my childhood and all of those serials and series and the wonderful, I guess I'd call them the chapter endings, that kept
Yes,
going on and on. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? And yes, so I try to drag my reader through that sort of thing too. A lot of cliffhangers in the book.
nice, nice. So, do you consider your book more action oriented, thriller? What type?
Well, I would call it a thriller as opposed to a mystery because we sort of know who the bad person is, although my protagonist doesn't know. He's in the dark. So I enjoy abusing my poor protagonist, poor Jake. I put him through the mill, but the reader kind of knows that there's more going on than he realizes.
Nice. And you mentioned Bosch and Virgil Flowers. So, if people like those books and those characters, would you say that they'd like yours? It's very similar.
In my dream, Stephen, yes, I would exactly say that. I love those two writers. John Sanford is consistently brilliant. So is Harry, the Harry Bosch series and the Lincoln Lawyer series. They're both excellent ones that I've enjoyed very much. And so those, if I can emulate those, I can't hope to match their success probably, but I certainly love. One of the things I really love is the mix that they're both able to get. Very bloodthirsty concepts from time to time, but there's humor in them, especially in John Sanford. He's got a great gift for humor, and especially
Yeah.
with the Virgil Flowers part of the series, it's just fun, and I like lightening the tension and the drama. It makes, I think, if you have these little asides, it gives people a breather, and then you can then mess with their head in the next chapter.
Absolutely right. Okay, so where you live, which is like the other side of the continent from me,
Hmm.
do you have any favorite bookstores that you like to go to?
Well, there's one in North Vancouver. There's a bunch, but there are very few in North Vancouver that I see. They're just two are opening up, and I don't even know the names of them yet. So it's an act of
That's
courage that they're even opening bookstores in this day and age. But yes,
nice. That's good though. I like that.
yeah, there are, of
Um,
course, the chain stores. There's Chapters Indigo, which we have one in West Vancouver, just down the road from me, and it's a good one. But the little independents are, it's always a bit of a struggle for them, I think. So,
yes. All right. So before we go and talk about some author stuff, which we're going to talk about conferences, you just went to one. Uh,
mhm.
if somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, Ken, I heard you wrote a book. Why should I get it and read it?" What would you tell them?
That's a very good question. I would say if you're fascinated with heroes, if you're fascinated with the question, who am I when no one is looking? Um, and explore some of that, I think that you might like this book. I mean, now you may have to put up with a little mayhem and murder, but there are some deeper aspects of heroism that I think you might find quite interesting. And so, yes, I would say give it a shot for that reason alone.
Great. Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll make sure there's links in the show notes for people interested in the book.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Hi, if you enjoyed this episode of Discovered Wordsmiths, please support the author. Go to their website, go to Amazon, look them up, get the book. And if you click on the link that I have in the show notes, you'll also help support the podcast so I can keep the hosting and all the software I use and keep it running to help more authors. When I am recording this, we've got over 100 episodes, lots of authors. Go to the website, discoveredwordsmiths.com. Check it out. There's a lot of great authors, probably in some genre that you love. See what they have. Check out their books. That's what the point of the podcast is for. So people can discover new authors, find some new books they love, support the authors so they can continue writing. So please support them. And if you do like the podcast, if you've been thinking of podcasting or you're a writer, I've got some links also at the website. Click on those if you're interested in any of the software or services that I talk about. Everything that I have there is something I use, so I've got an affiliate link. Again, it's a little bit, if everyone clicked on those, if they were going to get it anyway, it helps keep the podcast going. So let's all help each other out and discover more authors to read.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.